Good morning and welcome to VetNet for our second O2O VCTP Employer Spotlight. I am AJ Florkowski. I'm an active duty Army veteran with 11 and a half years of service active duty, still serving as a Army reservist. Full-time I work as a project manager here at the IVMF in support of all of our programs and services. Today we have some special guests with us. Chris Kentner joining us from Hershey, PA. Chris is a U.S. Army veteran and is currently serving as the managing partner for Assertive Professionals. Joe Townsend joining us from Louisiana. Joe is an Army veteran as well and is currently serving as a military strategic sourcing analyst for CRSA. Betsy Wells is joining us from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Betsy is currently serving as a technical recruiter for Brooksource and is also leading their Project Patriot program. Today's session will be moderated by the O2O VCTP programs, Anthony Cosby, Director of Employer Outreach, and Christy Di Pietro, sorry, Christy, on the Onward Opportunity Specialist for Hiring Heroes USA. I will be monitoring the YouTube chat channel throughout the course of today's session and introduce any questions that come through to our guests via the YouTube chat channel function. So if you have any questions and you are viewing via YouTube, please utilize that function and I can introduce your questions to the group. Anthony and Christy, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Well, thanks so much, AJ. I really appreciate the introduction, and thanks so much for our guests for being here today. Chris, Joseph, Betsy, thank you guys so much. I'm looking forward to this session and looking forward to hopefully getting a lot of questions through our chat function. So folks that are on, please make sure you ask questions through the chat, and we're monitoring at Syracuse University through IVMF, and we're looking forward to this conversation. So a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Anthony Cosby, Director of Employer Outreach at the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University. I've been on board for a little over 2 years now. Been working with the Onward Opportunity program for 2 years as well. Navy veteran, served 21 years, had a great time, and now I have a phenomenal time helping veterans and military spouses as they transition the uncharted waters of getting into the private sector and landing that premier career. It's been a joy to serve with the Institute over the last few years. We've effectively, positively helped over 15,000 folks through the O2O VCTP program over the last 2 years. And our amazing partners at Hire Heroes USA have been there with us in step from our humble beginnings of starting at Joint Base Lewis McChord and Camp Pendleton with a little over 30 folks starting the program. Now, throughout our program, at each installation, we have upwards of 75 to 100 folks per cohort, about 300 folks per year. And to top that, we have about 1,200 folks 11 months out of the year that are able to go through our program on a virtual basis. Our program have opportunities for folks to get certifications in the areas of business management, customer service excellence, information technology. And the great thing about it, it is totally funded by the Institute for Veterans and Military Families through our funders, Schultz Family Foundation, through our funders at Prudential, at USAA, and we're really grateful and thankful, and plus our our partner with the Institute, JP Morgan Chase, funds those virtual VCTP certifications that we have. And none of this is possible without the great work that our friends at Hire Heroes USA does. And I would like to have Christy introduce herself. And I truly look forward to this session today. So Christy, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thanks so much, Anthony. I am the Onward to Opportunity Employer Specialist here at Hire Heroes USA, and I have been in talent acquisition for about 5 years. And in my current role, I have the privilege of introducing O2O and VCTP students directly to our military-friendly employer partners. To give you a little background on Hire Heroes USA, we are privileged to be a partner with O2O and VCTP. We are a nonprofit organization, and our goal is to assist military members, veterans, and their spouses to succeed in the civilian workforce. Actually, as of this week, we hit a milestone and we have now assisted 24,000 people in gaining successful employment. Just kind of big picture, what we're looking at is we have about 250 clients that come into our system each week, and we average about 140 confirmed hires in a typical week. The basis of what we do is built upon a one-on-one relationship with our clients, working directly with a transition specialist who is their career counselor. At this point, I'd like to go ahead and shift over to introducing our wonderful panelists. I'll start with Chris Kentner. As AJ mentioned, he is the managing partner, or one of the managing partners at Assertive Professionals. He is an Army vet and brings about 20 years of DoD and intelligence community experience to the table. So with that, Chris, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and your organization.
Okay, thanks, Christy. A little bit about myself first. Like you said, Army, active Army veteran. My MOS was 98 Golf, which now I guess is 35 Papa, and that translates to Signals Intelligence Linguist. And I studied Arabic at the Defense Language Institute, which is what led me into the contracting world later on. Served in 1st Cavalry Division, Fort Hood, Texas, and had deployments to Afghanistan, Kuwait, Turkey, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Like probably many of the folks online have gone to some of those places as well. After an MOS-based stop loss, snuck out before a unit-based stop loss, was caught at the end of that, so served a little over 5 years, and got into the contracting world. Worked as an analyst on a program looking at Arabic blueprints, and went from there to MBA school part-time, and then ended up managing that program later on, which is when I learned the part of the business that I'm involved with today, after using my multiple GI Bills, right? Yeah, I was very happy to hear about the post 9/11 when it came out. Assertive Professionals, our company, is an economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business and a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. We've been in business about 3 years now, and we've been growing rapidly, over 20 employees now, which may not sound like a lot, but when you're starting off with just the 2 managing partners, it's great to see this kind of growth, and we've got a great growth plan projected for the rest of this year and the future. What do we do? The company hires, well, I'll tell you our core competencies right now: geospatial and imagery, full motion video analysts, and other intelligence disciplines as well. We do systems engineering and technical assistance, SETA work, helping the government oversee other contracts. We have overseas OCONUS operations experience. We also do financial management, program management, acquisition management, and enterprise level strategy. And when I introduced the company, I mentioned we're an economically disadvantaged women-owned small business and a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, which may not be as important. Maybe it'll resonate to a candidate and they'll want to come work for a company that has these qualifications. But these are very important socioeconomic distinctions that the government looks for. The Small Business Administration has directed government agencies to contract with companies of our size in these type of statuses, and large businesses look to partner with companies like ours. So when you see these kind of these socioeconomic distinctions in a company's bio, that's what they're there for, to let these companies know, not just to be attractive to candidates, but also for partnering and also to government agencies. So we're headquartered in Tysons, Virginia, right inside the Beltway, and right next to the Beltway, right on top of it. And we have offices. I'm talking to you from the Hershey, Pennsylvania office right now. And then we've got folks located at government agencies in North Carolina, Missouri, and other locations worldwide. We have someone out in the Horn of Africa right now, redeployed someone from Iraq recently, and have opportunities all over the world. So I think that does it for my intro. Thank you very much.
Great, Chris. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Next, I was going to go ahead and shift to Joseph Townsend, who is the Military Strategic Sourcing Analyst for CRSA. He also is an Army vet and brings a great background in both recruiting, talent sourcing, and IT to the table. So with that, Joseph, I'd love for you to jump in and introduce yourself and your organization.
Good morning, everyone. I was in the military for 16 years. I was actually serving for the National Guard active duty for the last 6 years as a recruiter, and I intended to get away from that when I went into the civilian workforce, but they found out about my work experience, and now I'm back in sourcing, which basically I just help attract different people, candidates to the jobs, and link them together. And because of our organization, CSRA, and now it's General Dynamics Information Technology together, because of my leadership, I'm able to work with the military candidates the most. And that's my passion, is to be able to help people that are transitioning. Some of them are reservists also that need to be helped. And if we can connect them, we have jobs worldwide. Some of the things we work with General Dynamics Information Technology now is cyber, data analytics, digital platforms, digital services, enterprise business services, intelligent business process services. And we work as a government contractor. So like I said, we're all over the world. We don't have anyone in North Korea. So just want to make that distinction. But I'm really, really pleased with the company I'm working with and the opportunities they give veterans. We have about 30% veteran workforce with CSRA side, and General Dynamics brings 25% veteran workforce. So they're very veteran friendly, and it pays off, of course, to have our veterans because we understand teamwork, and it's just a great environment to be around because you connect with a lot of people with our team. And about my 16 years, I was cut short because of a medical discharge. So if anyone's out there that understands that, they medically retired me. I did good for 3 years and they caught me. So that's why I was cut short at 16. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Joseph, and thank you for being here. I'd also like to introduce Betsy Wells. She is with BrookSource. She is a technical recruiter and also the team leader for Project Patriot program, which is their military hiring initiative. On Betsy's LinkedIn profile, she is tagged as a career matchmaker, which I think is brilliant. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So she brings a solid background in technical recruiting to the table, and then also her background and leadership in the veteran hiring initiative through their current program. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to you and let you take it from there.
Okay, thank you so much for the introduction, Christy, and wanted to dive in and tell you guys a little bit more about BrookSource, Project Patriot, and myself. So BrookSource is an IT staffing company. We focus on Fortune 500 organizations, understanding what their technical needs are and finding the right individuals for those roles. Exactly like she mentioned, I'm a career matchmaker, right? So I work with each candidate in terms of best understanding what technical skills, soft skills, and what type of environment they're looking for in their next job, and help in terms of marketing those skills to other employers. So to give you a little bit of background on BrookSource itself, we were founded in the year 2000 out of Indianapolis, Indiana. So we're a Midwestern company at heart. Got 23 different offices nationwide, and I'm sitting out of our Milwaukee, Wisconsin office, one of the coldest with lots of snow on the ground right now, in fact. So I've been here for the last 5 years, and I'm our recruiting team lead in the office. About a year and a half ago, I launched our Project Patriot program, and this is a program geared at employing military veterans. And I want to back up and give you guys a little bit of extra information as to why and how we work specifically with each veteran. So we had recognized that there is a need for this. I've been informally a military recruiter for quite some time and have had a lot of success in hiring people straight right from the service, and best understanding their backgrounds, doing my extra research, and ensuring to represent them in the best way possible. So our director of recruiting tasked me with creating a guidebook. We realized very quickly that this can be a full-fledged job. And so back in August is when I branded this Project Patriot. We now have a team of 23 recruiters across the country, one in every single office that specializes in military hiring. So we've put out a really robust training program to make sure that we're best understanding how to get in touch with the right individuals. And there's 3 main areas that we look at there: working directly on military bases with our transition assistance programs, working with support organizations like Hire Heroes USA and Onward to Opportunity. They've been a fantastic partner for us. Every Friday, we send job descriptions to best get candidates and help in terms of being a good connector piece for them. And then, of course, we work with a lot of educational institutions, universities that target veterans in their admissions programs, or even more informal training programs. So since launching this program in October, we've been able to hire over 115 veterans, which we're really proud of. And we work hard to be advocates to those hiring managers, best understand what experience, skills, and the adaptability, the leadership that the military, your military background has helped to forge and market your skills in the best way that we can. We also have a transition accelerator. So this is a program that gives you access to online coursework to make sure you're catching up on every single technology that you need to be successful in your job, as well as some different professional expectations and guidelines to make sure you're properly acclimated in your new role. So yeah, that's my spiel. The types of positions that we focus on for the most part are management, a lot of project management, business analyst types of roles, systems and infrastructure, support and administration and engineering, and cybersecurity. So those are some of the main areas that we work on here, and really excited to keep the conversation going and have some good idea sharing today.
Great. Thanks so much, Betsy. Thank you for being here. At this point, we'll go ahead and shift into the questions section. Anthony, do you want to kick it off, or do you want me to kick it off?
Go ahead, ma'am. You got the mic.
Okay, terrific. So I'll kind of throw out a question for the 3 panelists, and if each one of you wants to chime in, great. If some of you want to, others don't have to. My first question is, what types of trends are you seeing and noticing with veterans joining the civilian workforce? And based on those trends, what advice would you have for people that are transitioning into their first jobs in the civilian sector?
I'd be happy to speak up on this one. In terms of trends, I think that more and more companies are gravitating towards veterans, which is excellent, and recognizing the soft skills that you bring. The adaptability, the leadership, the work ethic are undeniable. But one thing that I think is important to note here is that there's a big change in culture when going from being in the military to being in a civilian or corporate job. I think it's really important to know when to ask for support, how to communicate with your manager, how to communicate concerns or areas of improvement for your entire team or your company is really important. From my experience, you bring so much to an organization, but make sure that the help in identifying a veteran mentor at work. For us, that's a huge game changer. Use that person's behavior as a guideline and make sure that you are comfortable speaking up, asking for help, or supplying them with candid ideas for improvement. Those are the few of the areas where I see that there is a change between military and civilian culture.
Awesome, thank you. Chris, Joseph, do either one of you want to jump in on this one?
Yes, I can give a little information from my standpoint. It was that culture shock that she mentioned before too, coming from the military to the civilian world. And someone the other day was talking in our team, and they were talking about the rigid military style of meetings, how we have to come in early, we sit down as soon as it starts, rolling forward, it's all business. And they had a transition from that style to coming to a meeting where they actually communicate with each other, ask about families, and it was more of a relaxed atmosphere, and it was easier for people to communicate that way. And they actually love it now, but it took a little while to transition. And I think that a lot of us do that coming from the military. The other thing I notice is that we're leaning towards the military because of the skills they bring. Of course, as an IT company, we have a lot of military guys that are coming to us with certifications and clearances. And that's a big part of what we do. We really have to have a lot of clearances out there. So that's very important coming over. And if you have a clearance, keep it. That's just a little advice I can give.
Awesome. Chris, it looks like you're about to jump in.
Yeah. So on the clearance thing, well, first on the culture, I would agree. The culture is definitely different in the civilian sector than it is in the military sector. And how so? It is a bit softer, right? It is a little more personable. So I'd echo those comments there. But on the last point about clearances, a trend that I'm seeing, so we hire almost exclusively folks with security clearances. So we tend to hire veterans. I'd say 90+% of our folks are veterans. Understanding the rules of when a clearance is to expire. We're seeing a lot of folks recently who thought they had a clearance and it has gone away. So I would caution before you transition out, make sure you've got everything lined up so you do keep that valuable clearance if at all possible. If you're thinking that you've got a clearance for 5 years and you can go from your last investigation or from your last transition out of a military unit, and you can go do something else for 4 years, say go to college, right? That a lot of times will fit inside a 5-year window. And then I can just come back out because I've got this clearance. That's probably not going to be the case. And in fact, if you haven't used it in 2 years, it will probably go away. If you are in a reserve unit and they can hold your clearance, and maybe they don't need to because it's not your MOS, but you can sign up for an additional duty that can hold on to that. That would be a very valuable thing. But that's the main trend that I'm seeing in hiring folks with clearances, and I'm dealing with it today. I deal with it every week, is people thinking they have a clearance and it has gone away unbeknownst to them, and nobody is calling them up saying, hey, today's the day we're shutting your clearance off unless you do something about it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And that is definitely a strong selling point from what I've seen really across the board. So thank you so much for that insight. One topic that both Betsy and Joseph touched upon briefly is corporate culture. And I would say from where I sit, each company has its own flavor. And I'm wondering if the three of you have advice on how to assess an individual company's corporate culture, so that when someone's going through the interview process, to get a gauge on what their day-to-day might look like. So if you have any advice on that, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I can speak to this a bit. I think that assessing corporate culture goes well beyond looking at the clothes that people are wearing or looking at the building that you're sitting in. I think what's most important here is communication, management style, and the way that an office views flexibility. Those are three of the main areas that I think would be important to look at. And as someone who's job seeking or trying to try on a couple of different company cultures to see what best fits you, for communication, look at the way the desks are laid out. Are you going to be in a cubicle where there's not much interaction? Or are you going to be in more of an open pit environment? How often are you communicating with your manager? How often are you receiving performance reviews, et cetera? Try to get a good feel for that piece of everything. I think understanding advancement and leadership opportunities and how much a company is willing to invest in growing your skills, growing your career, growing your compensation, those are going to be really important things to assess. And looking at that leadership style, I think that is so incredibly important. Your boss really does define your day-to-day. So I think figuring out, again, what does it take to be successful in this role? How can I reach my next goal professionally? Those are some of the areas that you're going to want to look at to best define that corporate culture and Flexibility is a huge topic of conversation in human resources right now, and in every company across the board, right? Is this a strict, I need to be at my desk from 8 to 5 every single day? Do I have the ability to telecommute if something's going on with my children or my family? Those are the right types of questions to ask and gain some idea of what that flexibility looks like for you, so you can find that balance between personal and professional life.
Awesome. That's great insight. Chris and Joseph, do either one of you want to jump in?
Yeah, I would say flexibility is a big thing that can exist in the corporate world and does exist to a greater extent than it has even in previous years. And it's going to be very different from what was going on inside the military. So it's one of those things where you might not know that you want it until you've gotten a taste of it. Like the working from home, maybe a 4x10 schedule where you have every Friday off. These are things that you might not know to ask for. So knowing that they exist and reading up on what a company is providing as far as that sort of a morale offering, I would say, is definitely important. Another thing, and something I'll highlight about as sort of professionals, we have a very transparent culture. We do a lot to inform our folks of what's going on behind the scenes. We try to have a meeting every month that says, all right, here's the stuff that your management staff has been working on since last we met. We try to make connections with the employees, invite them to these meetings, and we try to give them training on what happens behind the scenes. And some companies have that, some companies don't. We've seen greater and lesser extents of that. So if you're the type of person who wants to show up and go to your job and go home, that's fine. And if you're somebody who wants to get into the weeds of what's going on in this type of business, you probably want to assess whether that stuff is happening in the company that you're about to work for or not, to see if it's a good fit from that perspective.
Great, thank you. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to AJ. It looks like a question has come in related to security clearances.
Sure. And I actually have something I wanted to contribute to that last question too, before I go to the YouTube question. So having served 11 and a half years active duty and then transitioning to the reserves, one of the things I learned is when you're talking to a potential employer, trying to gain their perspective on somebody who is serving in the National Guard or Reserves, for anybody out there who may be in that situation where they're transitioning off active duty into a National Guard or Reserve capacity. There is a challenge there because a lot of employers will be quick to say, yeah, we'll support that. But if it's an employer that doesn't have a large veteran population or folks that are in the Reserves National Guard, they may not really know what it means to have somebody in their workforce doing that. And then, likewise, you may want to ask what their policy is on military leave and stuff like that. Whatever comes out of it, if it's not like in the employee handbook or something like that, you do want to make sure you get whatever their commitment is in writing. So I've learned that through a couple transitions to different employers and stuff like that, but something that you may not think to ask up front or think to look at, but it's definitely worth considering. So the YouTube question came in, and we actually had another one come in here too, so I'll hit them both up. The first one from a gentleman named Dwayne. He asked, what do you do? And I guess this may be directed at Chris. If somebody wants to join an organization that doesn't have a clearance, it sounds like, do you support them in getting clearance and help them to do that as well?
There are limited cases where we would be able to do such a thing. Typically, you would need to have a prime contract and you would have to have a customer amenable to supporting somebody getting a clearance. And they would probably have to have something of a unique skill set, but it all depends upon the contract. I would say we're typically not in a position to do that. And this is another reason we love to hire veterans, because it is very easy for the military or for the federal government to get their civilians security clearances. And they will hire someone on and they'll wait the time that's required until the person gets the clearance, then they bring them on. And just due to the nature of the contracting business, if we're on contracts that last no more than a year, but the process to get, say, a top secret clearance might take a year and a half, it doesn't make sense for us to extend ourselves that way to try and get somebody a clearance. Again, unless you've got a specific skill set, somebody who's in a very limited capacity, that's a different scenario. But that typically we're finding when we put that we want somebody with a top secret clearance, they need to already have that eligibility. It's not something we can get for them.
Okay. Betsy or Joe, do you guys have anything for that too?
I would echo similar thoughts there. If a security clearance is required, it's best to have one either previously or have one that's active, as it is a very long and somewhat exhausting process to gain one. If it's a shorter term position, that's typically where we need to find someone who has that active security clearance if necessary. If it is something longer term, we have gone through that process, but again, it always takes upward of 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course, our company is the same way, depending on contracts and the length. But I will say this, when you're looking for positions out there, you can usually find under their requirements, if it says it's required to have a secret clearance, or if you can obtain a secret clearance, which are two different things. That means you can come in without one and they'll sponsor you when it says can obtain. So that's a couple of keywords to look for if you're looking for someone to sponsor you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. The next question came in from a gentleman named Ralph. His question is, what advice do you have for those who may already be employed in an IT career who are looking for a change to a more manager, project manager, program manager type role?
Yeah, again, I can certainly speak to this. If moving into project management is something that you're interested in, I think first off, letting individuals at your company know about that and seeing if there's opportunity to grow within your company is a good place to start. But if you're looking to move to a different culture, a different organization, a PMP certification is a very valuable certification. I do realize it's expensive, it is time consuming, but that's one that we often look for project managers. Otherwise, I think that trying to create a plan and different ways that you can take on unofficial project management duties be a great way to add that into your resume and demonstrate that you have the ability to manage a large scale project, which I think that you can do in an IT career as long as you're sticking your neck out there and opening yourself up for leadership. If you can say that you are coordinating individuals in a budget and a timeline and making sure that a large scale project is taken care of, which are nonstop in IT, you're definitely setting yourself up for a good project management career track.
I would agree with that. If you're going after a PMP certification, some people are scared off by the fact that it requires 4 to 7 years of project management experience. But what they might not realize is that doesn't mean you need to necessarily have had the title project manager for 4 years or 7 years, depending upon whether or not you have a degree. You can do a lot of things that contribute to the management of a project, whether you're helping with scheduling, whether you're helping with logistics, whether you're helping with the risk management piece of it. And this is something that we help our folks with when they're looking to do project management work, to highlight this stuff in their resume, those portions of projects that they have supported in a project management type role as opposed to a project manager role. And it's all legitimate. It will all count towards PMP. But yeah, and I'll also echo what Betsy said, the volunteer for leadership positions, because that's part of it. If someone wants you to be a project manager, they expect that not only are you going to lead stuff, but you're probably going to be leading people at some level. So any level of leadership experience is going to set you apart from someone who has none of that. So those are the two things I'd echo.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's it for right now with regards to the YouTube chat. So back to you guys.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, AJ, for that, and a really lively discussion thus far. And for us, the project management piece is great to hear. That's one of our certifications that we offer through the O2O VCTP program. Additionally, we have enterprise agreement with the PMI Institute that provides opportunity for our folks to get 1 year no cost admittance to the PMI in their local community, so they can go out and get those mentors and build those networks as they're diving into the new career for project management. So thank you guys for that feedback on that. And also from the other question. So I want to go into the aspect of folks that are in that transition window, and now they're ready to go into that crucial interview, and they're looking possibly an interview for the first time with a private sector company. If you guys could talk on some of the things that the traits or skill sets that you're looking for, but also the traits and skill sets and interview techniques that you guys really see when folks come in to do face-to-face, and even if you can talk about if you do virtual interviews for folks as well that might want to relocate to one of your locations, but they're in that position of transitioning, but they do want to relocate. And if you all can, save a little dime on flying them to your headquarters and do a virtual interview. So if you could talk about that, that would be great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk on that a little bit. So first off, when talking about preparing for an interview for the first time, it sounds like there's a little bit. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, got you.
Okay, thank you. So when preparing for an interview, a few of the things that you're going to want to demonstrate to the individual is not only do you have the necessary skills to fulfill that position, but is this going to be the right next step in your career? So I think you need to be really careful about the way you answer your long-term goal questions. If you're coming straight out of the service, that the job that you first enter probably won't be the one that you retire at, right? But how is this taking a step in the right direction? Another thing that I think is important to be aware of, no matter what type of position you're interviewing for, they're going to want you to walk through your background, demonstrate when you've been a leader, demonstrate when you've had to deal with professional confrontation or conflict at work and do so professionally. And on top of that, it's going to be really important that you talk about, what your goals are and what you can bring to the table. Sometimes interviews can feel rather braggy. And I know that it can be a bit of a culture shift for those who have been a part of military interviews in the past that are a very different nature. And so I think be prepared to talk about why you're a great fit for that position and why they essentially need you for their team. Be prepared to also relate to them on a more human side. I know that it's not novel information by any regards, but if you keep it really professional and buttoned up the entire time, that person may not be able to relate to you in the same way as if you're able to find some common ground or have some small talk. Be someone that they want to spend 40 plus hours per week with. And then getting into the portion of your question where you're talking about virtual interviews, and that's something that we do quite a bit. I actually set up a fun round interview for 1 p.m. today. That's going to be virtualized. A few pieces of advice there are to have a background that you're proud of. If you have your closet or some clutter going on behind you, of course you want to be aware of that. You want to test out your camera and your microphone to make sure there aren't any connectivity issues. Nothing gets an interview off to an awkward start, like not being able to see or hear one another properly. So you're going to want to test those things out effectively. In terms of relocation, sometimes we're going to fly people in for interviews. I think it's really important with relocation. As a recruiter, I always have somewhat of a hesitation with someone who wants to relocate. So I think it's very important as the candidate to demonstrate why you want to move there outside of just the job. To demonstrate that you've done some research on the community, on things going on, even neighborhoods that you're interested in, and you have a plan for moving. If you own your home and you're living 3 states away and you haven't communicated that plan, as a recruiter, I'm going to feel a little bit uneasy about presenting you as a top candidate or trying to push the forward. I'll want to hear that you have thought about and internalized what you want to be making that relocation happen.
Thank you. Chris or Joseph?
Yes, sir. I can come in with a couple of things here. I know that when we do a lot of interviews in person with the military, and one thing I've noticed our managers look at is, are they comfortable? And it's the cultural thing. Will they fit in with us? And I'm very rigid. Don't be like me. So you want to relax, because if you're rigid, it makes them a little uncomfortable because they're not used to that. But they want to, if you have your resume worked out where it plays towards your strengths for the job you're applying for, then be confident in that and just worry about making a connection, a personal connection with everyone, and help everyone relax. And you can take control of the room just by helping them relax a little. And that helps the manager and helps you with the rest of the interview. So I was just wanting to add that little bit.
No, thanks, Joseph. I think your voice makes me relax. So that's very good. You're not so rigid. So, Chris.
Yeah, I would say, so first of all, on the remote stuff, most of our interviews are done over the phone, just due to the nature of the candidates that we're seeing. A lot of folks are currently deployed and looking for a job when they come back from deployment. So whether it be telephone, Skype, I think most, a lot of employers are utilizing these now. It's becoming more and more common. It's not going to be a necessity that somebody be flown in. I think since there's been so much success with remote interviewing processes, companies are now looking at it like an unnecessary expense, even for folks who could possibly fly in for an interview. Advice for folks going into an interview, whether it's live or virtual, there's a couple of pieces of it. We talked a little bit about the personality fit and try not to be too rigid and all that stuff. When it comes to the actual job skills, though, I'd say I would give the same advice for resume preparation as I would for interview preparation, which would be use their language. Take the language that's in the job requisition and echo that in your resume. And you're also going to want to prepare for the interview the same way, right? So you might be telling a story about how you led an S4 shop while you're on a deployment. But if you're trying to translate that to a job that's asking for somebody who's a logistics specialist, will then use that terminology. So echo the terminology that's in the job requisition in your resume and prep for your interview in a similar fashion using their words. And on those same lines, I'd say don't just have one resume. You probably have a base resume and you're going to want a separate copy of it with verbiage that echoes the jobs that you're applying to. And if you're applying for 20 jobs, then you might need 15 to 20 different resumes, depending upon how they're written.
No, thank you, guys. Yep, go ahead, please, Betsy.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Didn't mean to cut you off. Just along the lines of what Chris was just saying, I agree completely. And a piece of advice that I often give to veterans is make almost like a master resume. I realize that in the military, your jobs change a lot, the exact scope of your work, the specifics, and that's not going to fit on 1 to 2 pages, right? So make a big master resume and copy and paste what's relevant for the jobs that you're applying for. I think that's a good way to stay organized and not have to reinvent the wheel with every single job application.
No, great key points, from Joseph's point of being relaxed and from Chris's point with the resumes. And Betsy, I really enjoyed your point where research where you want to go and research about the local community, knowing about the high schools or elementary schools or whatever it's going to take for you to start off on the right foot as you get ready to enter that new career in that new company. So amazing information. So I'm going to go ahead and let Christy ask another question. Christy, go ahead, ma'am.
Great, thank you. I actually wanted to jump in on what Betsy just said. When people work with an Onward to Opportunity, Hire Heroes USA transition specialist, they are given a master resume, just like Betsy said, and our specialists basically set them up so that they can easily be tailored to align directly with the verbiage from each job description, which is what Chris was saying. So here at Hire Heroes USA, that's exactly what we do. That's exactly how we are specifically aligned. I was going to ask a question about kind of attrition rates. There are times when transitioning from the military to the civilian sector is very challenging, and sometimes that leads to an individual accepting a job and it not being a match for whatever reason. So I guess my question is, are there suggestions that you have that help individuals starting new jobs to actually stay in the jobs? So I know that Betsy, you briefly mentioned, finding veterans that are in roles right now. If there's any other tips or suggestions for advice to kind of make the new job their new home.
Yeah, I think that all stems from when you're beginning a new job, understanding what the expectations are, internalizing that, and making sure that that lines up with what you want to be spending all of your time doing, and then figuring out what the right tasks or goals are to hit to be able to progress within the organization, whether that's to receive high marks, to help set yourself up for future promotions, et cetera. So I would say if you're entering a new job, absolutely identifying a mentor. If that job has a military resource group or affinity group or something along those lines, that can be really helpful too in identifying some individuals that you can align yourself with very early and to help with that smooth transition. But more than anything, I think it's about setting very clear expectations of what you should be doing, where your performance should be, and having frequent touch bases with your manager, leader, mentor, whoever it is in the company that you feel comfortable asking for that consistent feedback from, to ensure that you're hitting the mark, to ensure that you're the right person long term, and to be given all of the support and sometimes constructive criticism that you need to be a good fit there.
Great, thanks so much. Chris, Joseph, do you have any insight?
I was going to say communication is probably the #1 answer for any question that's going to be asked today or any other day. And it's a two-way street. A lot of this is going to be on the company, right? The company's got to do the right things by new hires to keep them engaged, solicit feedback, and make sure that they're in the right role. But like I said, it's a two-way street. So speaking to candidates today, I'd say, if early on in your job you determine, hey, this isn't quite as advertised, or I'm not super happy here, believe me, as an employer, I'd be much happier to hear that from you at the 30, 60, 90-day mark than to get a letter of resignation because you've taken another offer because you weren't happy with what you were doing. So I would say just make sure you're communicating what's happening. And a lot of it for us is we're hiring folks who are going to sit at a government site at an agency, and we're not going to get that feedback unless you give it to us. We're not sitting next to you during the day, right? So we're hiring you, we're putting you on site, and maybe we're touching base with you every week or month. But if you've got a day-to-day grind that's going on that's not working out for you, let your employer know. Let them know soon, and let them know that you're open to something else. And I guarantee you they'd rather place you in something else that might be a better fit rather than lose you outright.
Yeah, I would like to kind of add to this too. Military folks, we have a tendency to try to hide in the crowd, especially when we're all going through boot camp and basic training. You never volunteer, and you kind of get used to not speaking up, speaking your mind, and trying to just go with the flow of the rest of the platoon or whatever you're in. But I noticed that when I began to push myself a little and volunteer and say that I'm willing to do more, my company was flexible enough to help me find the perfect position for me. And you'll find out a lot of companies are just waiting for you to speak up and tell them what your passion is. Tell them the things that you want to do, your goals, and really you've got to speak up. If you don't, then it might never develop into the kind of position you look for. So that's just some advice I can give.
Great, thank you so much. Anthony, do you have any more questions that you want to toss to the panel?
No, I think we're hitting up on our time that we're going to close. But I tell you, just a wealth of knowledge. I'm amazed because I learned a great deal today from this esteemed panel. So I really appreciate all the insight that you guys were able to provide. And as we go forward, Christy and I, we hope to bring forth many future folks for your companies through the O2O VCTP program. We're definitely growing. We just launched in Hawaii, so we're in Hawaii now. Unbelievably, it took a long time to get a program manager. I probably should have volunteered for that one, but but we're in Hawaii now at Hickam, and at the end of the month, we'll be launching in DC. So at Anacostia down at the Navy Yard. So looking forward to continue to expand. Be coming over to Fort Bliss this year as well. So just some amazing opportunities that we have, and we look forward to again working with y'all each and every step of the way. Thank you all for being amazing O2O VCTP employer partners. I hear about all the great things that you guys are doing, and I can't thank you all enough. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the man behind the curtain, AJ. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Awesome. So just real quick, I'll close it out with a recap of what came in over the YouTube channel. And Anthony, can you hit mute? Sorry about that. I don't like the sound of my own voice. Yeah, so there was actually really good dialogue that took place over the YouTube chat channel. So I would ask the folks that are viewing this to check that out. It was basically talking about project management experience gained through some military positions. It also talked about not necessarily needing a PMP certification to go after some project management positions, which I can attest to. Personally, my first job out of the military was as a project manager, and I do not have my PMP yet. I'm working to get that right now. And even here with the IVMF, I'm working as a project manager right now. So there are opportunities out there. Plus, it helps gain the experience that you need to. So please check that out. I just want to close out real quick and just say thanks for our special guests for participating, Chris, Joe, and Betsy. Really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and experience with us today. This session will be posted on the IVMF VetNet page for future viewing access. And feel free to share the link with anybody that you think may benefit from it. This is really there to help folks that are in the transition process looking, to really put their hands around as many tools and assets out there to help them with that transition as possible. Also, too, we, like we said at the beginning, this is the second employer spotlight here. We look to do these about quarterly. I think July is our target for the next one. So please look to tune back in for another employer spotlight. Then we do have monthly VetNet sessions though that we are trying to put on. Right now it's tentative, but looking very positively that I believe it's on the 15th of May. We will have a VetNet session on utilizing LinkedIn. And it should be very beneficial for everybody that's able to participate in that one. So, but thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'm sure I'll see you around. Take care.